All right, everybody. Hey, welcome back to Weekly Reflections here with Chris at Pushing Back Chaos. Thank you all for your submissions and your response to the post that we had out. And we're going to get to the question of the week that everybody voted on, which was 67% the vote went to. So must be pretty important. But first, I just want to give a shout out to the Honor Foundation. So this is a program that I just graduated from after 12 weeks all summer. The Honor Foundation is a organization that helps transitioning SOF operators and any support staff transition into civilian life. And it was a fantastic program. You get to learn about your strengths, your weaknesses, your why, your passions, what you like doing, what you don't like doing, what you are willing to negotiate, your worth, everything. And it was just so profound to see other people and hear their stories about what they were going through, how they felt, what their future looked like, and also their honest to God worries. It was very humbling to be in that group, and I've made a lot of great friends from that group. Networking was a huge part of it, learning to talk to people, listen to people, tell them your story, tell them your why, and pursue something maybe that you've wanted to do for a long time. And because of the military service, you weren't able to. But it was really great. And I'm thankful for the opportunity and got to graduate and was voted as the honor man. And I've never made the honor man of anything. I wasn't even aiming for that. I thoroughly just enjoyed spending time and getting to know people and helping where I could, because it's who I've become now in my life. And this question today was kind of relevant to this, and this is why I also put it on there as an option. And there you go, I got picked. So without further ado, let's jump into it and get into the question. How do I let go of something I'm still carrying? There's no surprises there why that was probably the top one, because I think everybody is carrying something mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, maybe. And I'm no stranger to it. I didn't get a pass. I didn't get the memo that said I got to skip any of that because, I did something different in my life. I think we all get it. We all get it at some point in our life. Change the date, change the location, change the people, same thing. And that's why we talk about these things. That's why we can relate. So what do we do if we're trying to let go of something that we're still carrying? Well, I'm going to share some things that I've done, and I've deep dove into a lot of conversations about this before with Melon on our podcast, but also with some of my other mentors that maybe you've never heard about, and I'll keep them private. Also, time in scripture and uh, Bible study groups and men's small groups and communities and networks and veterans groups. A lot of different things I've brought this up with, because I'm always trying to figure out, man, like, how did that thing crush me so much? And I paid for it. I don't ever want to go back there. So how do I get better? That was the goal. How do I get better from this and let this go? Well, the first thing, as a problem or any heavy issue, is you have to acknowledge it. You have to acknowledge it. You can't let go of something if you can't recognize you're holding on to it. All right. If I'm holding this book right here and I'm holding it up, I can't say, well, this book doesn't exist, never happened. I choose not to believe it. Well, guess what, man? You're holding it. I'm acknowledging it. I feel the weight. I feel the pressure. I feel everything about this. It's real. So acknowledge what you're holding on to. If you can't acknowledge that, it doesn't bring it to reality. And if you can't acknowledge it, it doesn't fully exist for you to dive into it and dissect it and figure out what about it don't you like or is sticking to you. I think that's fair to say. I know a lot of people that have had battles with alcoholism, and the first step is admittance and saying, yes, I have a problem. boom, there it is, dude. Number one, that's strength to admit and acknowledge that, yes, this actually happened, instead of dancing around it, pointing the finger instead of pointing the thumb, making up a story to make you sound like the good person and all this. Well, I was 100% right. I was the angel. I'd never did anything wrong in my life. No, let's acknowledge what things happened. And I have an example at the end, which I will use, because I would never ask anybody to do this if I'm not willing to do it, nor or have I already done it. Fair? So acknowledging it first. Let's be very real. Don't hold back. Be very raw if you need to, and deep dive that. What really helps is if you get a pen and paper and you kind of write it down to make sure that you got every single detail. If necessary, it's on there. I didn't miss anything. Oh, I forgot this later, or oh, that one little thing, I could leave that out. No, no, no. We need the full story. Well, you need the full story. So let's be honest. The second part here, separate the lesson from the burden. Okay. What happened is separate from the emotion or the burden that you choose to carry. And I say choose because there is a path that allows you to let it go. I didn't say forget, but to choose to set this down, let it go. It's still there. I still see it. I still acknowledge it. I'm not going to forget about it, but I'm choosing to let it go. That is a choice. But separate the lesson of why it happened from the emotional aspect that you're carrying, which is probably discomfort, pain, confusion, something like that. Okay. It's very hard to do because emotion controls. We're emotional beings. Emotion, everything starts from here, usually turns this into the craziness and overthinking, which turns into action. And that can be very crazy and destructive. So we have to be very mindful of the emotional burden that we're carrying in our hearts and minds. Let's sit down and ask the hard questions. Okay, what thing are you holding on to, and what happened? And usually people like to tell the story from their own perspective about what they witnessed. But you have to get into why did this happen from the other person's perspective as well. You know, there's two sides to every story. People always say that. Usually when we tell the story, it is, you know, we're the hero in our own stories. Uh, I've come to find out, no, sometimes we're the monster, and we have to be honest here. So deep dive each side the best you can. You may not have all the answers, but you have to start with yourself, write down everything that happened and what you contributed, if anything, honestly, to the situation, and write it down. Get clarity. Okay. You participated in that event or something that happened. And what did you do? What didn't you do? What did you want to do that you didn't? What did you want to say that you didn't? How did you respond? And would you have responded differently? Would that have made changes, right? You can only look at the actions that you took care of because that's all you could have controlled. Now, if you know something about another person or the other side of it, write down as much as you can that is factual. Okay. 100% this happened. You may not know the full picture because maybe they don't want to share it. Maybe there's no opportunity to deep dive and find out. Maybe that's restricted. I don't know. It's a very general type of example, but you need to look from the other perspective as well. Now, what did this teach you? Okay, once you have all these written down, what could you learn from this? Let's separate the emotional hurt and the pain or whatever. Take the emotion out. What lessons are to be taken from this? You know, I've heard people say some people aren't for life, they're for a lesson. Okay, great. I think everything is a lesson, not just people, but experiences and everything. It's something to help give you an opportunity to build yourself in a better way. But for this, let's think about how can I take away some lessons from this? Whether it's, can I communicate better? Can I be more consistent? Can I show up? Can I be more verbal and address things when they needed to be addressed? Could I have raised the red flag a little sooner? Could I have put a stop to something or say no, no more? Right? There's something there where you probably missed the mark or didn't do something. Maybe you just didn't know at the time. You didn't know how to, and it's okay. It's where you have grace for yourself, for a little bit of forgiveness. We're never perfect, but we do the best we can with what we have when we experience it. Right? Nobody's perfect every single time. So what can you pull from that? Then this is a hard part because sometimes we do this. Some people have royally hurt you. Some people have damaged you, caused trauma. And I'm no stranger to this, and I'll speak about it. But you have to think about the other person. To villainize them and make them this ultra big monster in your mind and this dark, force that just lives to prey or hurt you or traumatized you in your past. We can build that up, and when we give power to a monster, the monster gets bigger and it takes over a section of our life, of our thoughts, of our feelings, of our interactions with people, or other parts of life. And we keep it, we feed it by always giving it that negative attention and name and priority in our life. And it shows up everywhere, doesn't it? So we want to get away from that and try to, if this is a person that's happening, one thing that I've really learned in my life is about acknowledgement that they are human as well, that they are not perfect, or they should be perfect to this expectation that I had in my head. And honestly, the hardest part is giving some compassion or forgiveness to them because they're human. And why do I say that? That might sound so crazy to the normal person and be like, no, I would never forgive that person. Well, as I always said in other times, what are the terrible things that you've done to somebody where you were the monster and you know it? What if those people forgave you, and how would you feel? If you think you are worthy of grace and forgiveness, other people are too, even when it's the hardest. But, this part is not about, the forgiving and allowing somebody or something to keep hurting you. No, it's not about that. This forgiveness piece and compassion piece is about acknowledging they're human, just like you. They are capable of being hurtful and mean and destructive, just like you. And you can choose not to associate with them anymore. You can choose not to have a relationship with them anymore. You can choose to set a boundary with them. And basically, what you're doing by saying this is saying, hey, I forgive you, is you're taking off the weight. You're choosing to let go of the emotional attachment or memory that they hold over you so tight that you think it's part of your identity or who you're supposed to be. I work with some people who have had very rough childhoods and have brought up sexual abuse, for example. How do you let that go, man? You can never forget that. You could never, but you are more than that. Okay, so one thing I work with people is saying, hey, I know how that made you feel, but that's not who you were. That wasn't even about you. That was about that person and what they were dealing with, or how they were brought up, or what they were told was right or acceptable. And that has nothing to do with you, but you were on the receiving end, and you can't live in that identity. Giving compassion and forgiveness to a person or a thing that hurt you, it wasn't about you. So why should you have to carry it and be a burden? You don't. You can choose to. Like I said, I can choose to hold this book and not acknowledge it. But I'm going to say this book gets heavy. It gets really heavy. And I don't want to carry it anymore because I want something else better in my hand. I want to carry something else that's really good for me. So I have to acknowledge this thing's here. It's hurting me, and I want to let it go. Well, maybe it's not this book's fault that it's heavy. This book was made and developed and came from an environment, whatever, but like, it's not really it has nothing to do with me. It's just how the book is. So just acknowledge that, let it be. I don't hate the book. It's just how it is. But I know I don't need to give it any more power or any of my time or my thoughts, or allow this to affect what's in my other hand that's important to me. I don't need to bring them together. I can do that. So I'm going to let it go, and I'm going to give it some compassion and realize it's not perfect. And I'm going to release those feelings. I'm going to say, I'm not responsible for that pain anymore, because that's not who I am. That's not what I was designed to be. I was designed for good things in my life: love, relationship, joy, meaning, purpose. Like, I have things to do and things to serve. And that's not one of them anymore. So you don't have to hate it, because hate and anger, you can carry those as well. And I know that for a fact. But you can let it go with a compassion. And I don't want to say you'll feel bad for it, but you wish somehow, man, you're so bad. I wish you could get fixed. I wish you would be better, in a sense. I know I've said that to some people and have prayed for their healing and their path forward, that it's a more pleasant and they find peace. I pray for my enemies and the things that have hurt me. Doesn't used to not make sense. I used to be taught an eye for an eye, and I'm going to smash you if you ever touch me. And I don't want to say time or place, but protection is a different thing. But vengeance is a completely other thing. And I find myself more praying for the people that hurt me, because they're probably going through something I don't understand, but it has nothing to do with me. You know, um, unless it does, then I need to take accountability. So once you do that, you kind of release the power they have over you, that sinks in your mind every day, that lives with you, and you constantly talk about it. You constantly have to bring it up to people. Uh, Release that. It's not yours. Thirdly, stop trying to change the past. Okay. Social media is terrible at this. Everybody posts their great stories, their story. They're their own hero in their story. You go back and retell the story, even if I heard this a couple of weeks ago, and it's very true. One of my friends said, if you tell 99% of the truth, but you don't tell the 1%, you're still a liar. And I was like, dude, that's a shot across the bow, because it's absolutely true. There's one story, and you tell it as 100% truthful as possible, and the truth will set you free. People that can take accountability for everything, and then acknowledge it and even ask for forgiveness, are usually pretty admirable people, man, because that takes a lot of strength to be able to do. And personally, I love surrounding myself with people that can take accountability, ask for, they apologize and ask for forgiveness, because that's very strong of any person to do, especially men, because we don't talk about emotions, right? But that's so key. And I love that characteristic in people. So stop trying to change the story. Be 100% truthful. Go back and revisit and tell the story of what really happened. Again, I will share this at the end as an example, and I encourage you guys to do the same. And then lastly is ask yourself, is this helping me because who I'm meant to be, or is this keeping me tied to who I used to be? How many people do we know that had something happen to them or were part of something, let's say 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, and they haven't changed? They haven't let that go. That's still their identity. It's still who they are. Every conversation they come up, it's, I am this. I was part of this. I did this. And it's like, dude, it's so long ago. Like, why are you still holding on to that? those things, those people, they all moved on, but you are choosing to live in that space. Like, come on now, it's enough. There's got to be more to you. No, can you see that? It's very frustrating. And I'm not pointing the finger. Again, I'm pointing the thumb because, again, I will give you an example. But you have to be honest in saying, if is holding on to this thing keeping me from going where I want to go? Is this an anchor? Is this degrading me? Is this stunting my growth physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually? Is this making me an ugly person? Is this making me a toxic person? I don't know. We have to ask and be truthfully honest. And if we can't decide, then I highly recommend bringing in 2 to 3 other people that are mature. They are great examples of who you want to be like, and you bring them in for counsel and have them giving you an honest evaluation. That's why your circle that you keep is very valuable, and they will tell you the truth and tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. Okay. Any one of my friends that sees me doing wrong, they do not hesitate to call me out and say, you are not being who you want to be, nor who we uh, are holding you accountable to be. Knock it off. Okay. That's why I keep you around, man, because I don't want fake. I want real. And when I can't be real, I want the people around me that will force me to be real. It's that serious. So asking yourself, is this keeping me in an old version, an old identity, an old time frame, an old memory? Uh, or is this really helping me build to what I can become from it? You know, somebody reached out 2 days ago and told me about what they were struggling with, and it was a physical ailment, and what they were going through and how it was affecting their family and their friends and everything else. And they just said, I'm so tired and I'm exhausted and I don't know what to do. How do I move forward? And I keep asking why. Why is this happening? Why did that happen? Why did this person do this to me? Why is my physical self this way? Why? And I can relate to that because I used to ask why all the time, and I never got an answer. Just kept cycling. But the right questions I start asking is, okay, this happened. What can I do with this? And who could I be throughout this? I can control both of those. I can choose what I want to do with it. And what's a good example? I always like to use Batman and the Joker. Okay. Everybody knows them. You know, I love The Dark Knight, and it's a great example. But, you know, I always ask people, do you know what Batman and the Joker were born from, what they had in common? They were both born from extreme pain. What do you mean, Chris? How's it going? Well, Bruce Wayne, his family, his parents were murdered in front of him, and the Joker grew up with he had a mental thing that when he would be uncomfortable or in pain, he would laugh, and society made fun of him for it and beat him down, whatever. So he had rejection and all these other things to him, but both were extremely painful and emotionally, um, negative. But what happened? Batman was like, I witnessed this, and he became this hero, and he said, I went through this and I don't ever want this to happen for anybody else, and became more of a protector. The Joker said, well, the world hurt me. Now I'm going to hurt it, and became very violent, and he attacked people and betrayed people, and he was the bad guy of everything. But they were both born from the same thing. We have that decision to make. Do we want this to make us into a negative person and live that kind of a life like the Joker and destroy and burn everything? Or do we want to take it and say, I don't ever want this to happen again. I want to overcome it. I want to be bigger than it and allow it to be part, not but part of my story, and become something greater and possibly in the service of others. Right? You don't want to see anybody that you love ever feel like maybe you did, or where you came from or experienced. And you have that option, So this is where we have to take inventory and ask ourselves the question, do we want to stay and live in the old version of what it did to us, or do we want to become something better? You're in control of that. You don't need anybody else to tell you. All right. I hope that was insightful. Now I'll get to sharing mine and I'll be finishing up here in a couple minutes. Try to respect everybody's time. So, like I said before, I would ask anybody to do this. I would do it myself, and I'll share some of my story. So, how did I let go of something I was carrying? Well, I carried something from 2020 to mid 2023. It was about a relationship that I had, and well, I didn't have, and I was completely crushed by it, and I fought depression for 3.5 years. I hung on to memories, conversations that happened, silence that happened, ghosting, if that, and I didn't sleep much. I slept 3 to 4 hours a night. I think I lost about 23 pounds. Every person I talked to, I had to bring it up and constantly talk about it for about 3.5 years. I spent I don't know how many hours on the phone, constantly calling my friends and asking, "What if? What's this? Do you know? How's this going to work? Do you think?" And just spinning out of control. I didn't know who to trust. I would go to work and see people and I'd be like, I don't trust you. Maybe it was you this all happened. Maybe it's this person. I had no idea. I was completely in the dark for so long, and I was never given an explanation. I was never given an apology. I was never given anything. It was just detach and discard, lock up, don't need to explain to you, don't need to do anything, and it's gone. And I was devastated, to say the least. One of the hardest struggles I've ever had in my life. Very, very hard to let go in every aspect. How do I let that go? Well, I did what I just explained here. I had to acknowledge what happened. Okay. Um, I wasn't the choice. I wasn't the person that this person chose. That's what happened. I had to acknowledge that, which I didn't want to. I had my pride and ego, and I was like, no, I'm better, and I'm this, and I'm that. This doesn't make sense. Whatever. No, 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 no. That was hurt and pride and ego. I had to acknowledge that I wasn't the person they picked. So going into what we said is I had to take accountability. There's two sides to that story. What did I do, and what didn't I do? I wrote it down. I had to take inventory and say who was I and who wasn't I in those moments for myself and for this person. Also, too, I had to look at her as she's human too. I wonder how she was feeling when this happened, when I said this, when I didn't do this, when I didn't say that, right? She had her own emotions and feelings. She wasn't a monster of a person, although I wanted her to be because it made me somehow feel better and um, acknowledged, I guess, that I was royally hurt or something. I don't know. I think it was really selfish of me. But that's what happened. But I had to take accountability on my side, and I knew that I contributed to that splitting. I absolutely did, and I didn't want to admit it at first, but that's what happened. So once I realized that, um, I looked at the lessons and said, "Yep, I was not the man I wanted to be. So who do I want to be? If this ever happened again, how would I show up differently?" And that's where I started my plan to get better. Whether it was communicating, whether it was being patient, whether it was taking action when I needed to, being decisive was a big one, and not dragging my feet because I was nervous or scared because of the unknown and I don't know what's going to happen, right? Uh, I needed to be better in those fields. And I also needed to know who I was as a man, how to act and how to conduct myself every single day and prioritize the things in my life that deserved it. And I wasn't the best at it. So I took accountability for that and acknowledged it. Um, I began to tell the story of really how it happened. and included every aspect of my life in there. So the picture became clear, the story became clear that it wasn't just my side, but it was the whole picture, and did that. And then I asked, this was a terrible thing in my life. Am I going to let this define me and ruin all the things that I want in my future? I wanted to have a good, healthy relationship. I wanted to be a good man. I wanted to have children and be an amazing father. Am I going to allow this to ruin all of that and all the things that I want to do with my life? No, it's not. It's not worth it. I can't. I can't go back and change the past, but I'm still in full control of the future. So I need to put some work in, man. I need to start showing up, and I still need to continue to build. I just need to rebuild a whole new foundation if I want to get to this new thing. And it's just not going to be with her. It's just not going to be with that. It's gone. I told myself so many things that didn't come true. And I was waiting for 3.5 years and none of it happened. It actually kept getting farther away. And it hurt more until I made a phone call one day and was able to have a really wonderful conversation for about 40 minutes. And I took accountability. I acknowledged that person. I explained what I failed at and what I contributed to it. And I asked for forgiveness, and I also apologized. And 1,000 pounds gone. I let that go. That version of me that was holding, gone. The memory of all that, gone. The expectations I had, gone. And for the first time, I think I smiled genuinely in 3.5 years. 10 seconds after I hung up that phone. And, you know, that was 3 years ago. Fast forward, this is the best chapter of my life. Uh, I've never had more peace, clarity, or joy in my entire life. And I don't hold on to the things that hurt me, broke me, destroyed me anymore. If anything, I'm grateful for them because I had the opportunity to grow from them and become the better version of myself in the future that I aim for every day I wake up. And we can all make the choice to do that. And I highly encourage you to do it. So that's the end for the video for the weekly reflections today. I appreciate you stopping by to check this out. If this is meaningful to you, please comment or send me a message and let me know. I love doing these, and I usually get great feedback and hear other people's stories and where I can help out and do whatever. Um, I just released a video down in Nag's Head where I went down and spoke about identity and purpose and struggles and different things like that. But I also love to coach and mentor about these sort of things where people struggle with every day because I lived it, and I'd be willing to share first what I've been through and then help lead you through it. My calling is not just to survive this life, but to be in control and take control of it and lead myself, but others through it. And I'm here to serve. So if I can be of service to you, to somebody that you know, a group, a team, an organization, a church, whatever it might be, to come and speak, coach, or maybe consult. I would love the opportunity to be able to come spend time and just reach out. I love a genuine conversation and introduction, and we can see where we can match up and I can be of service to you. So until next week, take care, and I hope you all have a wonderful, purposeful rest of the week.